Hello, I am Jody Wolf. You're watching Expoz, March 21, 2015 at 1:15 a.m. Birmingham. And topic, Solar Eclipse Day. America cut ties with Israel. We are no longer allies at this moment. And that happened on March the 20th, on the day of the solar eclipse, the day that judgment falls against the nations that went against the Jews and against Israel. And I believe that's a very strong hint of what is to come. The fact that on that day, March 20th, the solar eclipse day, that America cut ties with Israel. Obama is acting like a kid that had his milk money taken away on the playground. That's exactly what that man is acting like. A kid that had his milk money taken away. He's acting worse than that. A third grader at best. But in any case, that day, March 20th, day of the solar eclipse between the four blood moons, between the tetrad, we are one of the nations that will receive judgment because we came against the Jews. And we did it in a major way. Not only did we do it several times, March the 20th, on the very day of the eclipse, we did the worst thing we could do, is sever ties with Israel. The worst thing we could do. That was not only telling God in your face, that's telling God in your face and in their face. The only way this country will ever recover from that, and I don't think it will, is for Obama to be gone. Joel chapter 3, verse 1 and 2. All nations came against the Jews, came against Israel. All nations. It didn't say all but one. Amos chapter 9, verse 9. Against Israel. Matthew chapter 24, verse 9. Against Israel. Zechariah chapter 14, verse 2. I will gather all the nations against it. This is Jerusalem. And it describes what will happen when those nations come into Jerusalem. Because at that time, Jews will still be there. They will be living there. And it describes, I would like for you to read it. It describes Zechariah chapter 14, verse 2, just what will happen to the Jewish women in that city. It describes in detail the very same thing that has happened with ISIS and Boko Haram. The very same thing. They're going into cities and towns. They're taking the women and raping them, and they're killing the children. Read it, y'all. We are headed there. Obama has showed his colors. He's a Muslim and he's a Sunni. And he has sided with Iran also on March the 20th. On the day of the solar eclipse. That is a triple whammy for America. Ezekiel 38 and 39. God will draw Gog and Magog against Israel. In other words, he'll put a hook in their jaw and he'll draw them in there. And the reason is that's their heart's desire. So he will tell them, well, then do what you want to do, and I'll help you do it, and he'll drag them in. And then on the mountains above and around Israel, 5 out of 6 of them will die. 5 out of 6 will die. And then you will see a rush in for someone to bring peace to the Jews, to Israel, to Jerusalem. And who will he be? He will be the one that Obama handed the silver platter to, that handed the silver platter to. Obama gave the platter to the Illuminati with us on it, and the Illuminati gave it to the Antichrist with everybody on it. We have gone against Israel, the worst mistake this country's ever made since it has been here. And then there will be 200 million come against the Jews. Against the Jews now. They will meet there in Israel. But luckily, God will have the remaining part of the Jews hidden away. They can't be harmed at this point. And then God will come, or Jesus will rather, and take away every one of them. In other words, he wipes out every living soul in that war. And that will be most of the world. America and the rest of the Christian nations, wherever and everywhere they are, they're not mentioned, no more mention of them in the Bible after chapter 4, verse 1. The church is no longer mentioned beginning on chapter 4, verse 1. You hear from it no more. And why? Because Christ came down and took the church out to safety before this destruction comes. And then what happens? Starting Revelation chapter 6, verse 1. Then begins the plagues. Start with the seals. And then start with the trumpets, then start with the vials. Nothing but plague after plague after plague, and this will continue until the very end, until the day that the whole world comes into Israel to battle. So we have messed in our shoes, and we're going to walk in them. But I believe that the solar eclipse, that the judgment that comes against the nations, that has gone against the Jews, gone against Israel to divide her, I think this is probably the very worst thing that could happen to our country. The other countries have not been allies, so they don't have too much to worry about in the manner of what we have facing us. You're talking about the gnashing of teeth. You're talking about dying of sheer fright. That takes place in Revelations after chapter 4, verse 1, after the church has been removed. This day, again, March 20th, I believe was a day that'll never be forgotten until the end of the very last second of the tribulation. At that point, God will erase it from everybody's mind. Jody Wolf Expoz.